Hey, hello there. Welcome to Talking with Tony, our Thanksgiving edition. We've welcomed back today the world's most interesting man, Fred Blatchford, who comes. We should know his setup by now. He's in Tampa now, but he's headed first to Atlanta Thanksgiving Day, and then on to God's country for the Auburn Alabama game. Fred, I call it the Auburn Alabama game. I refuse to call it the FE, which is
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, because it's just where is that in Auburn? And it was
No,
such a.
you're right. I never thought about it. You're right, the FE, but you're right. It's not that anymore because that was when they dominated everything.
And they made the call.
Hmm.
You're going to come to Birmingham. You're either going to play in Tuscaloosa or you're going to play in Birmingham, which was never 50-50 for
No.
all. It was never
Mm-mm.
50-50. It was 65-35, and everybody selling in the concession stands had Alabama hats on. If people took a bus over from their hotel, the bus driver had an Alabama
That's
hat on.
right.
It just the people
You're
bought
right.
shares of Legion Field were Alabama people. So Bama played 3 games a year there. I mean,
Yeah.
come on. So,
No, you're
but
right.
but we have to talk. It's rivalry week, and I want to get the two Thanksgiving NFL games out there. We're gonna pick the two teams that traditionally play, and then I want to talk Auburn football memories with you, the Auburn Alabama game, maybe a little bit of Georgia Tech as well. I want to tell you that the Buccaneers have got a fine football team, but it's something about playing the Rams that's not a good matchup for Tampa.
That I watched it obviously, and that might have been the most perfect first half offensively I've ever seen. I mean, they didn't miss a cue. They and the Bucks had no answers to stop them defensively. It's always everybody says, well, they're the best. They might be the odds-on favorite now, I would say, to win the Super Bowl. They have no weakness. They got a great coach, great quarterback. At one time they were talking about how many assets the Bucks had on offense. The Rams have got more assets now and healthy assets, healthier and younger assets than the Bucks have got. The Bucks are in a tough spot, but the Rams do own them. And boy, I tell you what, that was over the middle of the second quarter. Literally, it was over.
I mean, Stafford looks 25. This is a team lost Luke Donald. I mean, not Luke Donald, but Aaron Donald a couple of
Yeah,
years
yeah,
ago, who
yeah.
was one of the better players in defense. You would never know it.
No, they actually may be better than that Super Bowl team.
Hmm.
If you think about it, I mean, they're scary good. They are really scary good.
And right now, I believe they have the home field advantage in those NFC
Mhm.
playoffs right now. So
Yeah.
let's talk Packers and Lions before we get to
Mhm.
the Chiefs and the Cowboys. The Lions and Cowboys are the two teams that traditionally host Thanksgiving Day games. The NFL went back, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago or so and added a third game for NBC to show in prime time that doesn't feature either the Cowboys or the Chiefs. It's nice for other teams to be able to play. Lions are favored by 3 in this game. This division
Yeah.
is something else. I mean, Minnesota is the odd one looking out. A lot of people would like to be the Minnesota Vikings, but the Bears have come on. Green Bay has got a fine football team, and we know what Detroit is capable of as well. They're in a spot here. This is a huge game on Thanksgiving Day.
Oh, it absolutely is. I don't know if I can add anything. I mean, I can't figure out the Packers because one week they look really, really good, and you think, all right. Then one week they look the opposite of it, and you're like, they're done. The Bears obviously look really good. They've got a great staff. They seem to have found, what they were looking for, but do you want to put a whole lot of, emotional ROI on that thing right now and tie yourself to the Bears? So I don't know. I mean, I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to be heavily watched. There's a lot that's going to come out of whoever wins and whoever loses that game. But I wouldn't put one penny on trying to figure out who the hell's going to win that game. Not in a million years would I try to.
Unfortunately, I'm going to make you make a
Yeah,
selection
I
for the
know, but
viewers.
but I'm not going to put any of my money on it. If I had to pick, now if I know I have to pick. Um, is it in Green Bay or in Chicago?
This game's in Detroit, so it's
In
Detroit
Detroit. I
again.
mean, I mean
Yeah.
Detroit. I would go with Detroit.
All right, you're going to go with the Lions minus
Yep.
3.
Yep.
I make no choice here, but I do make a choice in the afternoon game between the Chiefs and the Cowboys. I thought the Cowboys had a great
Mm.
rally against the Eagles, down 21 to nothing. Some teams would have mailed it in. I do believe, though, Kansas City pulling that game out for themselves at home against the Colts. is bigger for them. They have played a tremendously difficult schedule.
Yeah,
Okay,
they have. They have.
when you are in the Super Bowl the following year, that's what you get punished with, and some of
Yeah,
the
yeah, no doubt.
yeah. So I'm gonna go with the Chiefs here. They're favored by 3.5, but I'm just gonna think Mahomes and Kelsey are gonna have a huge game. I think their defense is better than people realize. I still think the Cowboys have some defensive questions, even though they went out and made some moves before the trade deadline to help that defense. But Prescott's been good. I just don't know if he can match Mahomes. And Mahomes found something with Rice, his wide receiver. I thought it would be worthy, but he's got a lot of weapons. And Kareem Hunt is still a great running back, a fine short yardage running back. I'm going with the Chiefs minus 3.5. What about you?
This is another one that, 1 minute you think the Cowboy season's over, and then they looked as flawless in the second half to come back and win that game as anybody has seen. Very similar to, what we've been talking about. And then the Chiefs, boy, when you talk about hanging by a thread, boy, for the last couple of weeks, they've been hanging by the thread. You think, well, it's over because one more loss, and then there's just no way they can do it. And they pull it out. And I hate to say this, and I will say, if anybody asks me about it, that you generated an AI version of me, but I think the Cowboys are going to win this game.
Now, I know you don't like my Ohio State Buckeyes. But what is it about the Cowboys that you don't like? Because when you grew up, it was people like Roger Staubach and
Yeah,
Tom
yeah.
Landry and just class act guys that were
It
the
was.
Cowboys.
It
So
was.
what is it about the Cowboys?
Actually, when I grew up, when moving around as a young child, we lived in Washington D.C. or Fairfax, Virginia. So I was a big Redskins fan
Sure,
for
sure,
several years when I lived in Northern Virginia. So that's where it came from. Is that Billy Kilmer and
sure.
Sonny Jurgensen and
Sonny
all those
Jurgensen.
guys. Yeah, that's what it was from. It was. I just grew up with. Temporarily, I was a Redskins fan, and I followed them for a long, long time. But that's where it came from.
Well, here on Talking with Tony, we still call them the Washington Redskins.
That's right. Me too. Yeah.
That helmet was fabulous that the
Yeah. Yeah.
Redskins.
Yes.
You notice when they do a throwback, they don't go back to the throwback of the Reds. It's a shame because
No,
people want them to,
I
and they
know.
don't. And I have been so excited to see the Bucks and some of their throwback, that creamsicle uniforms,
Yes.
which I think is fabulous.
Yeah. They and I've got a couple creamsicle jerseys, and I'll wear them occasionally to the game. Talking about that whole thing with the Redskins, and everything. I was watching the Chiefs, game the other day, and boy, they're all doing the chop and everything. I mean, I don't understand why one was. I guess it's the location of the team and all that kind of stuff, but why it's one way for one team and the other way for the other team. But yeah,
No
that's for
one's as
talk
good
show.
as you at finding like an emoji or GIF, whatever they call them. But if I have one, I'd give you that one, like with the guys like
I don't
thumbs
have
up.
any idea. Right, exactly.
It doesn't make any sense. Friday there are three great rivalry games for us to discuss. First one is clean old fashioned hate. This game is not on campus this time at Georgia Tech. They're playing it at the Georgia Dome. Now Tech is still, or I call it the Georgia Dome. They put Mercedes, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Tech is the home team here still, and they should have the most allotment of the tickets. But I can tell these I need to tell these Tech fans what's going to happen. The sponsors of this thing, the Coca-Colas and the Georgia Power, these are UGA people. Georgia's going to
Yeah.
end up having more people than you. Georgia favored by 13.5. Now, if you remember last year, Tech should have beat Georgia in Athens. They fumbled late when Georgia had no answer. Talk about the Bucks had no answer for the Rams. Georgia had no answer for Haynes King and Georgia Tech. They got it into 35 overtimes or whatever they
Yeah,
played,
yeah, 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 yeah.
and Georgia pulled it out. Now the odds makers, I've got Georgia 13.5, but in truth, this line's already moved up to like 14, and so the money's coming in on Georgia. Tech needs this to have any opportunity to get to the college football playoff because they absolutely blew it last week against Pittsburgh. What do you think? Do the Bulldogs blow them out, or do the Yellow Jackets play them competitively again?
Boy, I would have said it would have been competitively, but that game against Pittsburgh, that was bad. I mean, they had everything laid up right there in front of them and just laid a complete egg. I think they cover. I think they cover the 13 or 14 points. I would take Tech in the 14.
All right,
I
Georgia.
think Georgia's going to win the game, Um, but I think 14 points to Tech is a lot. And if they
Yeah.
play way better than, and God Almighty, if do they need any more motivation after the zero they let put on Pittsburgh to play Georgia, at least on a neutral field, and get 14 points? Good God, please! I hope they cover that.
We two members of our panel are using their 5 stars on Georgia here. John,
Really?
who's 8-5 with his 5 stars, has got Georgia minus 13 and a half for his 5 star, and Stormy has got it. Now he is 9-4 with his 5 stars, which is
Well,
exactly what I am. And
I don't know if I'd put it on that one,
he
but
is a hardcore Georgia Tech fan who, for some reason, takes Georgia each week. But I'm going to go with the Yellow Jackets here. This
yeah,
is I had the Chiefs minus 3.5 as my only NFL pick so far. My only college pick will be so. Well, I'll have a couple more. Georgia Tech plus 13.5. But Danny is on Georgia. John is on Georgia. Fred is with me with Tech, but not. But believes Georgia will win. Stormy takes Georgia, and Kevin takes Georgia. And by the way, Kevin has come on. Kevin was the brood of some jokes by some viewers because he was like 18 games total under 500 a couple weeks ago. He's now only 12 games under 500. Why that sounds not so good, the fact is he's improved from 18 under to 12 under.
it's not how you start, it's how you finish.
And you are 5 games under 500. It's not as easy as it like
No,
looks
it's
from the
not. It's
outside,
not.
is
It
it?
isn't. No. Especially when you pick some of those ones that I don't really have a whole hell of a lot of understanding what's going on with, like Idaho versus, Montana. And I'm like, I have no clue.
All right, this is one you do know about. Texas A&M favored by 2.5 at Texas. Last year, the Aggies could do nothing offensively against Texas, against that front, which these Texas guys are back from last year. They had a big fumble recovery for a touchdown that kept them in the game, but Texas won. A&M has got a lot to play for. If you're thinking like, well, get to the SEC championship, they're in the college football playoff. I don't know. I mean, this is a rivalry game, so I expect them to do everything they can to win this game now that they're playing. Again, I just don't know if they really want it, if that makes sense, because then there's an added game for you to play before the college football
True.
playoff begins. So they're favored by 2.5, and they've got to go to Austin. What do you think?
Well, here's another one. You're just like, one week the teams look good. Now, if Arch plays like he did last week, and A&M has had a couple of shaky wins that could have gone the other way, Texas at home rivalry game, I'm going to take Texas.
Okay.
I don't have any particular reason why. A&M, I think if they played 10 times, would probably win, 7 of them. I just have a funny feeling that Texas is going to, they're sort of a Jekyll and Hyde. They look really good or really not bad, but, they look pretty shaky. And I think maybe this will be the one. Maybe Arch has finally figured it out.
This reminds me of it's either 98 or 99 when A&M went to Texas with a great football team, and I believe they played on a Friday afternoon that year too. And Ricky Williams went off. Not only did he establish the single season, rushing record, but he had a huge game that game. But A&M was reeling them in as the game went on, and they just came up just a little bit short. And Texas won. Maybe it'll be a repeat of that. Texas gets out to a fast start. A&M, gets it in gear, but they come up short. I
I
have
think it's
no
the most competitive game on Friday anyway.
I have no pick there, but I'm going to give my 5 star in this next game. Arizona and Arizona State, an even line in Tempe. Arizona State, the host team. Last year, Arizona State beat Arizona 200-7, and that game was in Tucson. Cam Scottaboo and all those,
Yeah, yeah,
weapons
yeah.
Arizona State has. They still have Jordan Tyson. Sam Levitt, their quarterback, is out for the season, injured, but they have former Georgia Tech quarterback, I believe Jeff Sims is their quarterback. Arizona loses all of these players to the transfer portal the last 2 years going to Washington, where Jed Fish, their former coach, is. But the quarterback stayed, Noah Fahita, and so did Dalton Johnson, who is probably the Big 12 player of the year. And that says something when you think about how good Texas Tech's defensive front is
Mm.
in, in that Big 12. I'm going with Arizona as my 5 star, even on the road, because I think these boys are going to remember the ones that have stayed. The beatdown they took at home last year. It wasn't 200-7, but I bet it was
Might as well
57
have. It
to
might as well have
7
been.
for real.
Yeah.
So I'm in a revenge factor here. Arizona's healthy. I'm going with the Wildcats on the road.
Yeah, I think so too. and who knows in the psyche of it. But when you get your butt handed to you like they do, there's hopefully that there's some level of respect, and revenge, and I would go there too.
That's where I would give you that emoji thing.
Yeah,
Bullseye, you're on it, man. If you got some kind of pride in yourself, you remember things. And this
and
is your
you,
rival that did that to you.
yeah,
So,
and you
and
don't
plus,
think that the coach is going to bring that up into pregame speech.
you
For
got
those of
that.
you who
Yeah.
were here last year, remember how you felt at the end of that game. You don't
It's
even
a,
you don't even
if
need to script that one.
if you look into the Arizona football program, you would see 2 years ago they whipped Arizona State in Tempe themselves, and Jed Fish was that coach, and they had a huge. They went to the faced Oklahoma in like the Alamo Bowl, and they beat Oklahoma, and then he left to go to Washington, and they've kind of crumbled back. It took a year and a half to kind of find themselves again on good footing, but now there's excitement again about Arizona football. So
Mm.
Arizona State got the revenge last year after losing 2 years ago. I expect for Arizona to turn the tables on them, and we're on the same page there. That gets me to God's team, the Ohio State Buckeyes here, who have lost 4 years in a row to the Michigan Wolverines. I didn't think they would lose 4 years ago because Michigan had canceled the game the year before, saying they didn't have enough players to make it to
Yeah,
Columbus because of COVID. But we'll see you next year at Ann Arbor, is what they
yeah, yeah,
said.
yeah, yeah.
And at that time, Ohio State owned them in the series, had won like 10 of 11. But now Michigan has won four in a row, including last year where the spread was bigger than the 10 and a half points that Ohio State is favored this season over Michigan. I happen to think that the Buckeyes defense is the best in college football. And I am fully aware of what Michigan can do. Last year, Michigan was without a couple of their studs and still beat Ohio State. And Michigan can run the football. They've been able to run the football on everybody this year. I see this as a lower scoring game, but I believe the Buckeyes win. This is where, since I'm the host, I get to like back out of having to make a pick, and I make everybody else pick. So I'm not picking that game. But Fred, are you taking Michigan in the 10 and a half points, or does Ohio State turn the tables themselves?
I think Ohio State wins it big. That defense, I think I saw the other day that they're averaging like 7 points a game, giving up 7 points a game or some crazy number like that. Michigan can't score enough to keep up with them.
That
There's no way. So I think 10 and a half. I think Ohio State covers it.
this will make you sick as an Auburn grad and someone who has given back to Auburn. Just Tara and I were talking about a committee that you were on with her, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Carrie Bradley was the chair. She had her dream team on there. You were part of
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah,
Walt Kahn,
yeah.
Nick, others that are I don't know if Miguel was on that or not, but that you've given back so much to Auburn. Proudly serve on the board. Um, Going into the Vanderbilt game, there were three teams who had not given up more than 24 points in a game. That 24 or less is all that their defense had given up. It was the number one team in the country, Ohio State. It was the number two team in the country, Indiana, and at the time it was 4-5 Auburn going into the Vanderbilt game. How does that just devastates when you think about you wasted this season a generational type defense is what
Yes,
Auburn wasted.
I know it is hard to comprehend, and we could do a whole show on what if. But what if a couple balls bounce the other way? We're probably 8-3 or whatever it is going into this weekend, and the conversations looks different. But the defense, and Dirk has done a great job with that team. We'll see what happens in the next 4 or 5 days as it relates to that. But they have, you hate to say wasted, but they wasted a really good defensive unit. They really have.
And offensively, we talked about this when you were on the show before. Get the ball to Cam Coleman. They did too often. They did not do that. That kid is probably the second best wide receiver in the country outside of Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State, and he just doesn't get enough touches.
I mean, he's the best. He's the best receiver Auburn, I think. Probably you can make the argument that they've ever had. I mean, some of the stuff that he does is just you shake your head. Even just in the last couple of games, some of those catches he's made. Hopefully they can keep him. I wouldn't bet a serious amount of money that he's on Auburn's starting team roster next year. I would guess I'm hearing Texas Tech, but we'll see. But I'd be shocked if he was on there. And we've kind of wasted him for the last 2 years as well.
That's true. But thank you, Cam Coleman, for playing your heart out when you
Yeah,
do have
yeah, no
those
doubt.
opportunities. Clemson and South Carolina, or Williams-Brice, Palmetto State. I'm going to tell you, I've taken Clemson +2. If I had my druthers, I'd want the Gamecocks to win this game. I grew up pulling for them, and I grew up in the state of South Carolina. Actually, this game's in Columbia, where I recently took a fall. Some of you, the viewers, already know about this. I'm the only one that's got Clemson +2. The rest of the panel has South Carolina -2, unless Fred joins me with the Tigers, or is it the Tigers or the Gamecocks?
I'm going with the first half Texas A&M Gamecocks that they can play a little bit better in the second half. Clemson's got nothing. I mean, this is another one of those games that which team's going to show up on both sides of the equation. If the A&M Gamecocks show up, I think they kill Clemson. If some of the better halves of Clemson show up, they win the game. I just got a feeling that Clemson's playing out the string. I think South Carolina might say, hey, let's show that we can play good for at least 3 quarters, because if they play for 3 quarters, they win that game. I'm going to pick South Carolina.
Okay, okay. And like I said, everyone else on the panel is completely
Yeah.
agreeing with you with South Carolina. Uh, That leaves one more game before we get to the Auburn Alabama game. Vanderbilt and Tennessee. This game in Knoxville with Tennessee is a 3-point favorite.
Hmm. Boy, it's hard to go against, you know,
Pavia.
boy, no kidding. I mean, he's something else. I
He
mean,
owns Auburn, I'll say
boy, he
that.
owns he owns Auburn, and he talks smack and backs it up. And Tennessee's another team that they've looked good at times and then looked really not good at times. Um, I'm going to stay on the Vandy bandwagon here. I'm going Vandy.
All right. John joins you with Vanderbilt. The rest of the panel takes
Tennessee.
Tennessee
Yeah.
-3. I make no selection here. Time to discuss Alabama and Auburn. This is the five stars for Kevin and for Danny. Both take Alabama -6. John takes Alabama -6. Stormy takes Auburn +6.
Mm,
I am not picking here, Fred, because of each of the last two times Bama's played Auburn. I did pick Auburn, and they covered the spread, but they should have won the game. And I asked Tara, like, well, how many times do you get opportunity to beat Alabama? And we blew both of those games.
mm,
Tank goes out of bounds. They still had to go 97 yards in a minute, and
yeah.
they did that to
Wish
force
they did.
overtime. And we had TJ Finley playing quarterback. It's not like we had Bo playing quarterback. We had TJ
Yeah.
Finley and nearly beat them.
Yeah.
And then 2 years ago, we all know what happened on fourth down. Bama played at a high level that day, and so did Auburn. And Auburn, blew it right there. So I'm not taking a pick. I want you to go ahead and pick it, and then I want you to share a couple of your favorite memories of Alabama Auburn games. So will you take the alma mater plus the 6 here today?
God, I hate it, but no.
No. Okay.
Oh, I just think that at the end of the day, now, and I now have a It's Haunted t-shirt, hoodie. If the hauntedness comes through, Auburn wins the game. But I do think week in, week out, I think Alabama can win by more than 6 points.
You know what? What you just did is, and I hope the viewer that I talked to over in the day before I fell was over in North Carolina, and this was somebody familiar with the show that has watched us. And I said, "Look, there's nothing knavery going on, nothing deceitful with my panel. I put together what I thought was a good cadre of pickers. They have just struggled this season.
Yeah, that's right. Well,
Last year wasn't your fault. This is your first year with the group.
but seriously though, I mean, what's up is down and what down is up this year. I mean, even in the NFL.
Yeah.
But you're seeing teams that historically, if you pick them, you're probably going to win 70% of the time. Have Clemson. I mean, how many early in the season? How many times people probably picked a Clemson, Texas's of the years and stuff like that. It's just been an odd, and I do think a little bit of that is now portal and NIL is making things
Oh
a
yeah.
little bit more unpredictable as it relates to teams that have historically beat the hell out of somebody are now, being challenged by these teams, and the ball bounces a different way and you win it. I mean, Clemson has not embraced NIL, and boy, they've gone from here to here. So it's a harder thing to do now, I think, with the talent somewhat equaling out across the board. There was always a handful of schools that had all of it and a handful of schools that had none of it. And now the have-nots are closer to the haves, and that makes some things be a little bit squirrely.
But if that viewer understands that you're Auburn grad and you just picked Alabama, there's nothing deceitful, nothing like I said,
No, no.
negative going on here. You're on the money. So all right, so you go Bama. We're running short on time. We'll
Yep.
scroll all the picks at the end. Will you share just a couple of your
Yeah.
very favorite Auburn Alabama memories?
Well, I was there for kick six,
Hmm.
and it when it went down, and I was sitting in my section one seats, and yeah, obviously, as everybody knows, within a minute or two, the students are piling over the hedges and stuff like that. And I was there with five buddies, and if in my I have a seat on the end of the row, so there was the stairs go right down to the field. And about the time I figured that the cops had given up trying to stop people from running on the field, I said, "Let's go." We all ran down the steps, ran out onto the field, and I can remember standing on the middle of the field, and I could hear my phone vibrating in my pocket. And obviously, probably 15, 20 minutes, they came over the intercom and said, "Okay, folks, we got to get everybody off the field. The celebration's over." And I looked at my phone when I got off the field, and there was 99 different text messages of people who assumed correctly that I was on the field. I mean, even from the president of J&J to people I hadn't talked to in probably decades had text me and stuff like that. So it was that one. Bo Over the Top was another one.
85.
Oh yeah,
Mm.
school.
Or actually, that'd be 82, his
Yeah,
freshman season.
right. When I had just gone up there and going to that game. I can remember that. But and then more recently, the one where we had, we were leading the game and it had fourth and 31, and I was standing there in sitting in the same seat that I was sitting in for kick six. I saw the fourth and 31 pass, and it felt like that ball was in the air for about an hour and a half. You just kind of want one of these things. You're just like, oh, dear God, he's going to catch that ball. And because we were all prepared to run onto the field again, and it didn't happen.
I wasn't at the 82 game, but I was at most of Bo's other games, and I certainly was at all those in the late 80s that Auburn won. I'm going to go. My two are a little bit different, I think, than everybody else. 89, the game, first time ever, and
True. Yeah. Yeah.
is 30-20. Auburn wins that game. Remember James Joseph going over the top. And then in '04, with an undefeated Auburn
Mm.
team, trailed 6-0 in Tuscaloosa and came out in the second half and just beat Bama down with three touchdowns.
It snowed that game, didn't it?
It
Snow.
rained. It snowed in 2000. Okay,
Okay. All
when
right.
we
I was
beat
wondering
them
if
nine to
okay.
nothing in
No.
Tuscaloosa. We beat them 9-0. But in '04, it rained. It rained so
Okay.
much that we wore like a Blue Cross Blue Shield hat, and the water just dripped from the top of the hat because it just
Yeah.
rained so much. Now, I'm not going back to Tuscaloosa. We've won each time I've gone. I'm not
Yeah.
going back. I'm
No.
not going to do that.
No. No.
Fred, happy Thanksgiving. I hope I
You
get to
too,
see
bro.
you at some point this weekend. Thanks for joining me here, right here on Talking with Tony.
I'll reach out to you. See you.
All right, sounds good. For Jake Barton, who's in Costa Rica today, for Fred Blatchford in Tampa, Florida, I'm Tony Jones in Noonan, Georgia. We're going to scroll the picks. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Oh, and look at this. There's our favorite Oreo as well in Tampa, Florida. Best dog ever.